This topic is all about the sociological perspective on social structures. Sociological perspective is an approach to understanding human behavior by placing it within its broader social context. Mills referred to the sociological perspective as the intersection of biography for the individual and histories for social factors that influence the individual. Sociological mindset in regards to being able to connect individual experiences and societal relationships, and it emphasizes that our social backgrounds influence our attitudes, behaviors, and life chances. The chances of committing even an individual act such as suicide depend to some degree on the group backgrounds from which we come. So we have families, theoretical perspective. The family performs several essential functions for society. It socializes children. It provides emotional and practical support for its members. It also helps regulate sexual activity and sexual reproduction. And it provides its member with a social identity. So we have here the educational, also known as the primary socialization, where children are taught the norms and values of society. And then the economic, the family provides an economic function to all its members by pooling resources and ensuring all have what they need. We also have here the reproductive, produces the next generation of the society, and then the sexual relationship. So to recall, we that the functional perspective emphasizes that social institutions perform several important functions to help preserve social stability, and we also know that family is a major unit in the society to which socialization will happen. Conflict theory of a family. So, the family contributes to social inequality by reinforcing economic inequality. Family problems stem from economic inequality and from patriarchal ideology. The family can also be a source of conflict, including physical violence and emotional cruelty for its own members. So, for instance, many individuals experience one or more social problems personally. Some are unemployed, many are poor health, and many have family problems, and some are committed crime. So, family as a social institution contributes to society inequality in several ways. Like, for example, social identity. It gives to its children affect their life chances, but it also reinforces a society's system of stratification. So, because the family passed along their wealth to their children, because the family differ greatly in the amount of wealth they have. So, the family helps reinforce existing inequality, and it developed through the centuries, and especially during industrialization. So the family also become more and more of a patriarchal unit, which patriarchy is a social structure and legitimating ideology in which men have more power and privilege than women. So we have here the theoretical perspective of a family on symbolic interactionism. The major assumptions is the interaction of family members and intimate couple involves shared understandings of their situations. Wives and husbands have different styles of communication, and social class affects the expectations that spouses have of their marriages and of each other. So family problems stem from different understandings and expectations that spouses have of their marriage. So, like a classic study of Komarovsky, 1964, found that wives in blue collar marriages like to talk with their husbands about problems they are having or they were having, while husbands tended to be quiet when problems occurred, so which is true to life until this generation. And then another classic study by Robin in 1976 found that wives in middle class families say that ideal husbands are the ones who communicate well and share their feelings, while wives in working class families are more apt to say that ideal husbands are ones who do not drink too much and who go to work every day. Part is the education, the major assumptions of education, the theoretical perspective of functionalism. Education serves several functions for society. So this includes socialization, social integration, social placement, and so cultural innovation. The latent functions includes childcare and establishment of peer relationships and lowering unemployment by keeping high school students out of the full-time labor force. So the problems in educational institution harm society because all these functions cannot be completely fulfilled. So like um, to learn the norms, values, and skills they need to function in society, then education is a primary vehicle for such learning. Children are taught at the level that is thought to suit them best, and for a society to work, the development of such common views was a goal of the system of free compulsory education that was developed. And then the theoretical perspective of conflict theory. Here are the major assumptions. So, education promotes social inequality using tracking and standardized testing and the impact of its hidden curriculum. The schools differ widely in their funding and learning conditions, and this type of inequality leads to learning disparities that reinforce social inequality. So, schools differ in their sources, learning conditions, and other aspects, all of which affect how students can learn in them. So, children going to the schools in urban areas face many more obstacles to their learning than those going to well-funded schools. So because education serves so many manifest and latent functions for society, problems in schooling ultimately harm society. So like for education to serve its many functions, various kinds of reforms are needed to make our schools and the process of education as effective as possible. Like in some countries, several studies show that students' social class and race and ethnicity affects the track into which um, they are placed. So even though their intellectual abilities and potential should be the only things that matter, while white or the middle class students are more likely to be tracked up, and while poorer students and students of color are more likely to be tracked down. And here in the Philippines, it is obviously poorer students were enrolled in a public school. The teaching method are the same, but in some instance, a public school is lack of equipments and apparatus to be used during laboratories, which resulted to be lack of actual experience and experiments for the students to understand better the class for or the learnings inculcated to them, while the rich students can afford students have better uh, experience in actual learnings because of the availability of the equipments and apparatus in the private schools and universities. And we also have here the theoretical perspective of education. So the symbolic interactionism. The major assumption is this perspective of focuses on social interaction in the classroom, on the playground, and in other school venues. Specific research finds that social interaction in schools affects the development of gender rules, that teachers' expectation of the students' intellectual abilities affects how they learn. Certain educational problems have their basis in social interaction and expectations. So when teachers think students are smart, some tend to spend more time with these students, to call on them and to praise them when they give the right answer. Not surprisingly, these students learn more because of their teachers' behaviors. But when teachers think students are less smart, they tend to spend less time with these students and to act in a way that leads them to learn less. So the number of students also in a class affects the learning of students. And the research has stimulated efforts to educate teachers about the ways send messages and strategies so they could use to promote greater interest and achievements in every student.